2006, Supervisory Special Agent Custer has been assigned to the FBI's Baltimore field office, primarily investigating financial crimes. In that time, he has investigated numerous federal violations, including wire fraud, money laundering, identity theft, transnational organized crime, healthcare fraud, mortgage fraud, embezzlement, major procurement fraud, theft from the government programs, and material support of terrorism. SSA Custer currently supervises the Complex Financial Crime Squad in the FBI's Baltimore field office. Prior to joining the Bureau, SSA Custer served as a naval flight officer in the United States Navy. SSA Custer holds a Master of Business Administration degree from Carnegie Mellon University and a Bachelor of Science in Aerospace Engineering degree from the United States Naval Academy. And so it is my great honor to give you SSA Custer. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that introduction. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to speak to you and your constituency today. The topic is one that's near and dear to my heart, and that's fraud prevention and education. So I've got a presentation we'll be racing through today. I'll try and leave some time at the end for some questions. I'm sure people will have plenty of questions. It's quite an interesting and wide-reaching topic. So without any further ado, I will launch into my presentation here. Let me share my screen. All right, I'm working on sharing my screen. Apologies, I am not typically a Zoom person. Okay. All right. Just excuse me. Pardon the hiccup. I am not getting.
Lana, can you give him a little direction, possibly?
Keith, this is Heidi. You should be able to click that large green share button.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I'm having problems getting the window to actually come back up. I minimized it for a second.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to leave real quickly, and I will be right back in.
No, I mean, like garbage. Yeah. While he's out, it's just a reminder to keep your microphone on mute. We don't need to hear people in the background while our speaker is talking.
Okay. Okay, can everybody hear me now?
Yes.
All right, sorry for that.
No, can't hear you. Can't hear you.
How about now?
Yes.
All right. Sorry for this. All right, so can everybody see the presentation?
Yeah.
All right, excellent. Again, apologize for those technical difficulties. So I always like to start with this first slide. It's kind of funny, although this is a serious subject. It really does hold true. For those who are dialing in, it's a cartoon of a bank robber with a ski mask, and he's pointing a gun at a bank teller, and he's saying, you can do this just as easily online, which is unfortunately very, very true. So I always like to kind of level set at the beginning. I present these presentations to kind of large audiences, and everyone's a little different. So I like to kind of reinforce why this is an important subject. So first of all, I think everybody has a general idea that fraud is an issue, and fraud is kind of a very, very big problem. Well, whatever kind of number you have in your mind for how big that problem actually is, I can guarantee you it's small. You're way undershooting the target. So we'll look at some numbers produced by our Internet Crime Complaint Center. That kind of gives you a baseline, but I'm here to tell you that even the numbers that we collect are woefully small. Secondly, a lot of people have some preconceptions about what the victims of fraud look like. I think there's kind of these stereotypes out there of people who are maybe not so smart, they're not with it, they're mentally compromised in some way. But I'm here to tell you from experience that these types of schemes can affect very educated people. So I've investigated cases that have victims who are doctors, lawyers, former business executives, and these are people who are kind of their height of their intellectual powers, and they still succumb to these types of schemes. Thirdly, we talk about fraud mostly in a financial sense, but I always like to reinforce with people that these financial losses, while devastating, bring along all kinds of other issues as well. Victims of fraud frequently suffer physically from the stress and anxiety, an inability to trust people and their relationships moving forward. It can tear apart marriages and families, and the impacts can be even more devastating than those of violent crime. So the last bullet there, number 4, education. So I supervise a squad of 10 agents, each of them carrying 10 to 20 cases. So we're out there fighting the good fight and investigating the bad guys. But I'm here to tell you that for every case that we open, there's 5 or 10 more that go unopened, just because of the volume of the activity that's out there. So that's why we do these types of talks, to reinforce with people kind of the existence and nature of these scams, and to keep them from becoming victims in the first place. So I mentioned our Internet Crime Complaint Center. It's ic3.gov is the website. They do an annual report every year. The most recent full year report was for 2022, and I've got the figures on the screen up there now. So in 2022, for the entire year, and this runs the whole population, so this isn't just elder fraud, there were over 800,000 reports, just under 801,000 in fact, and the total amount of reported actual losses were over $10 billion. So if we look back over the prior 4 to 5 years, in 2018, the number was 2.7 billion. So the losses have almost quadrupled since 2018, and just year over year, the losses are up almost 50%. And again, just to reinforce, this is only what is reported directly to the Internet Crime Complaint Center. So there are many, many crimes that go unreported, and I am very certain that the actual loss figures are probably in excess of $100 billion. So this next slide looks a little bit at the age demographics of those who report to the Internet Crime Complaint Center. So this is where I like to reinforce that people age 60 and above don't report at that much a higher rate than people in their 30s or 40s or 50s, but their losses tend to be higher, and that makes sense if we think about it. If you work your entire life to build a safe retirement nest egg, you've accumulated a lot more wealth, and that's what makes these crimes much more devastating for people who are retired and age 60 and above. Is if you're victimized and you lose your life savings in your 20s or 30s, it's going to be a smaller amount, and you're going to have a much larger period of time to recover that. You still have 20 to 30 working years probably ahead of you. But if you're retired and you lose your nest egg, again, it can be a completely devastating scenario. So each year, in addition to the regular annual report, the Internet Crime Complaint Center will put out an elder fraud report. So if we look at some of those figures, elders in 2022 lost over $3.1 billion, and that's defined as people age 60 and over. And if you look at the bottom right there, you can see the losses rising at rates similar to what we saw on the previous slide. So this is clearly a growing problem. So we categorize each of the different complaints that comes into a number of different types of frauds. The four that we've got in the box there, the four that I'm going to discuss in a little bit of detail this morning. So the most common type of fraud reported in 2022, and it's holding true in 2023 as well, is something we're going to call the tech support scheme. So a bad guy purporting to be from Microsoft or Apple or McAfee or Norton or some other large tech company. We have romance frauds are still have been a big thing for a while and continue to be an issue. We'll talk about those. Investment frauds have been with us since as long as there's been an FBI. And then the one at the bottom there, government impersonation is a very common and a very devastating fraud. So we'll look at each of those in a little bit of detail. And again, if we just look at the losses for the four crimes that we're going to talk about, they're going to be really the top four. So there's one that's left off there, but that's a crime, BEC. It's business email compromise, mostly affecting businesses. So again, we see investment losses kind of topping the charts, followed by tech support, and then romance scams and government impersonations. And again, this is only what's reported. So let's step back for just a moment and kind of talk to ourselves and ask ourselves, what is a scam? So at a very kind of simple level, it's a lie told to a victim in order to get them to part with their money or their personal information, which can be used by the scammer to obtain funds. Each of these scams is a little different. And the one thing I want to reinforce is that these scammers, I think a lot of people kind of think of, a badly worded Nigerian prince email. But I'm here to tell you that the scammers are continually improving their game and their playbook. It's an organized group. They do this for a living. They wake up and instead of going to work, they work on their craft, which is scamming people out of money. So one of the first things they do with a victim is to try and understand them and try and understand the psychological levers that they can use to motivate someone to part with their money. In some cases, it's greed or just the hope of doubling their money or making a smart investment and feeling good about themselves in that way. In other cases, it can be threats and fears. So each scam is a little bit different, but the scammers will always have kind of ready answers to commonly asked questions. They work on that. They hone their craft. And the best scammers will spend as much time as needed to build that level of trust with their victim so that they can then later ask for funds. So we can be talking about days, weeks, or even months interacting with a victim, gaining their trust before moving in and asking for funds. So where do these scams come from? Well, we're getting hit from all directions. Back in the kind of the 80s and 90s, pre-internet, these scams were done through the mail. They were done by phone. But since the internet and websites, text messages on smartphones, social media, and email, the scammers have really taken advantage of all these new levers and highways in order for them, frequently operating outside of the country, to reach out to wealthy nations such as the United States and target them with scams. So I kind of hit on this a little bit already, and just some of the psychological levers that the bad guys are going to use. So if we look at the top left there, fear. So fear is a powerful motivator. Alone, so that the scammers frequently want to isolate their victims. They want them to not talk to anybody about anything that's going on, because somebody, a trusted friend or a neighbor or a daughter or son might see through the scam that's being perpetrated. So scammers frequently give directions, encouraging the victim to not consult with anyone from the outside, or tell a lie when they go to the bank and not tell the teller what the real reason are that they're withdrawing funds. The R for right now. Scammers are always going to want the victim to move quickly. It discourages them from thinking through the situation. That's really something that individuals should really, if you find yourself in a situation where you're not sure whether you're being scammed or not, slow down, take a breath, give it some thought, and consult a trusted friend. And then the last bullet there in the bottom right, desperation. There always wants to be, the scammer always wants you to think that they're the one that has all the answers, and to get you out of this fictitious problem. So the first type of scam that we're going to talk about is the investment scam. And one type of investment scam in particular, it's a cryptocurrency investment scam. So if anybody's heard of Bitcoin or Ethereum or any of the other types of virtual currency out there, this is a kind of a hybrid scam between not necessarily always a romance scam. It does have elements of relationship. So it's really kind of built on that relationship, but I think it can be best described through a video, and I'm going to try and show you that video now. Hopefully we can make that happen. All right. Okay. All right, that's not it. Can everybody see that video?
No.
Okay.
We just have a blank Zoom screen.
All right. Apologies. Let me try that again. How about now?
Yes.
Great.
No sound.
Okay. All right, my apologies for that. Let me get back to the presentation. Okay, are we back in our PowerPoint presentation?
Yes.
Great, thank you. So that woman was actually an attorney up in the Boston area. She developed a relationship online. Somebody accidentally texted her looking for someone else, and then just developed a kind of a friendly relationship. And then over the period of this relationship, he shared that he was an investor and he'd had a great success in investing in cryptocurrency. And he eventually showed her the website that he traded on, gave her some tips, and she was initially reluctant. And she said, I don't need a financial advisor. I'm comfortable investing myself. I don't want to give control of my funds to anybody else. But he said, no, that's not in fact what's happening. It'll be your account. It'll be controlled entirely by you. I'll give you some advice, but you will always have kind of complete control of this account. So the website that she was directed to, however, was a complete fake. So she, in fact, purchased a large amount of cryptocurrency legitimately through a cryptocurrency trading exchange, and then sent this cryptocurrency to this fake website, which in fact was completely controlled by the scammer. So it's got a couple of different levers there. So it's kind of the promise of spectacular returns, and the woman was allowed to trade on this website and shown that she was making losses, which were in fact, or she was making gains, which in fact were fictitious gains. And then she was presented with kind of a once in a lifetime opportunity to double or even triple her money overnight. And she eventually ended up losing over $2 million in the scam. So she was a woman not too old. She was an attorney, educated. She fell for one of these scams. So it's known as pig butchering, and that comes from a Chinese phrase that the scam originated in Southeast Asia, but has since spread to the United States beginning in about 2021 or 2022. Okay, next slide. So the next scam that we'll talk about is a tech support scam. I'm going to try, I have another short video here. If we can hear the sound or not. No sound?
No sound.
All right, my apologies. I'm not sure exactly what if there's a setting that I'm missing here. All right, well, tech support scams, as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, are far and away the #1 most reported scams. It's the one that's most likely to be reported. There's a couple variations of this scam, and again, the scammers keep improving their playbook. It usually starts with a pop-up on your computer screen, and it'll have something that looks like this. And you can get to this screen in a number of ways. You could click on a link from an email that was spam to you. You could go to a website that's unwittingly sold advertising to a scammer, and that advertising is actually going to be a pop-up banner that looks like this. But ultimately, either you're going to actually contract malware that's going to lock up your computer, or you'll get a pop-up to convince you that if we look at this pop-up here, it says the following data is first of all, it says you have the Zeus virus. Okay, so it sounds like something that's kind of sinister and threatening. It says don't shut down or reset your computer, and the following data might be compromised: your passwords, your browser history, your credit card information, and all the data on your hard disk files, which is kind of an awkward wording. And it's got a 1-800 number, a 1877 toll-free number for you to call. And if you call, the person will answer as Joe or Jim or some American name from Microsoft, and he'll convince you that you do, in fact, have a compromised computer. And then you'll be asked to download an application, something called AnyDesk, or another program that will allow a scammer to gain remote control of your computer. And once you give that remote access to your computer, then the scammer will have full access to everything that's on your desktop. So it won't be too hard for him to figure out where you bank. If you have some of your passwords that are kind of pre-saved into your web browser, they'll have access to that. They may even ask you to bring up your financial accounts and then let you know that those have been compromised. So this is kind of the most current variation of the tech support scam. The Internet Crime Complaint Center released a public service announcement a few months ago that kind of talks about what we're calling the phantom hacker scam. So kind of the first step is kind of what we've talked through there. You end up getting in contact with a scammer pretending to be somebody from Microsoft or another tech company. He has you install the software on your computer to allow remote access. He tells you where you're banking, but then you'll be told your financial accounts are at risk. The scammers have gotten access to your financial account, and we need to move quickly. We need to move these funds to a safe place. And frequently, that safe place will be a bank account in Hong Kong or somewhere outside of the United States. And you'll be told that there's somebody at your bank who's in on it. There's an insider, and we can't tell them why we're making this transaction. So we have to lie to them or not give them the information. They'll tell you that the account that you're sending the funds to is controlled by the government for safety, either the Federal Trade Commission or the Federal Reserve. And then, in the next level, that someone from the Federal Reserve or the Federal Trade Commission will step in and convince you that all of your funds, not just your checking and savings account, but now your retirement account is at risk. And they'll continue to escalate until they have every penny that a person has. And they've either wired it to a bank account overseas, or again, they've purchased cryptocurrency and send it to a wallet outside of the United States control. So this is a really sophisticated scam. There'll be multiple people that are involved in perpetrating the scam, and you'll be handed off from one scammer to another until all of your funds have been liquidated. Okay, so we have another video I won't even try to put up here. The Social Security Administration puts out a lot of warnings regarding scams with folks impersonating the Social Security Administration or somebody in law enforcement like the U.S. Marshal Service, the FBI, someone from the Sheriff's Department. And what you'll be told is that your Social Security number has been associated with a bank account that's been laundering proceeds from drug transactions, and there's been a warrant that's been issued for your arrest. And if you don't pay $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, whatever they think they can get out of you right now, that the marshals are going to show up at your door, throw you into handcuffs, and drag you off to jail. So, just us sitting here talking, we're at a fraud awareness presentation. That doesn't sound too intimidating, but these folks can be very convincing. And again, they're using threats of fear, violence. Sometimes the victims will be told that their Social Security number and their identity was used in child pornography, which obviously horrifies people. Whatever lever they can use to motivate somebody to walk to a bank, withdraw $10,000 in cash, and then there's any number of different ways that a scammer will then try and get that cash. They could be asked to ship the cash via FedEx to an address anywhere in the United States where they can have somebody waiting on the porch to pick that package up. They could have a courier come to your door and pick up the cash in person. We've seen that on a number of occasions, which is particularly scary. So these couriers will pose as bail bondsmen in some cases to come collect those funds. We've seen people being directed to go to CVS and purchase gift cards by the thousands, either iTunes cards or Amazon cards or Apple cards, anything that they can use to purchase merchandise that they can sell in the secondary market. And then most recently, again, we've been seeing cryptocurrency being used as a way for scammers to collect these funds. So this talks through most of what I discussed, and just as a reminder, the government is never going to call you up and threaten you with an immediate arrest and ask that you withdraw funds from your bank account for the purchase of gift cards or cryptocurrency. If we look at the tech support and the government impersonation scams together, collectively, they're kind of grouped as what we call call center frauds, because I mentioned it at the beginning. These scammers, they're organized. They work in groups. They work in call centers or boiler rooms where there's large groups of people working together to take your money. And then the last scam we'll discuss here is kind of an old-fashioned romance scam. So I think everyone on the call today is retired, which is fantastic, and probably of an age where you didn't meet your spouse on an internet dating site, but it is becoming more and more popular and accepted in the mainstream. There's any number of different websites out there, from Match.com to OkCupid, Farmers Only. I mean, you name it, and there's a website out there for anybody to meet anybody. There's websites for older people. Ourtime.com is one of those, and it's a place where people go to meet people, to make connections, to find somebody that they can trust and love. So it's kind of a pre-screened target population for scammers, and as a result, scammers will create phony profiles, put them out there, and trying to identify the most vulnerable and financially well-off victims that they can. So here's a sample profile, and this is an older one from a case that I investigated maybe 10 years ago, or almost 10 years ago at this point. But clearly it was somebody else's social media picture that the scammer probably pulled off of Facebook. The guy was probably holding up his law school diploma or something like that. And the scammer is writing love messages on there purporting to be this gentleman. So this gentleman called himself Philip Lowe. He was the owner of a construction company working on a project in the Philippines. And then he all of a sudden had a need for his project. He had some construction equipment break. He wasn't well financed. The bank wasn't giving him a loan. He didn't have anybody else to turn to. Oh, could you please loan me $50,000? I'll pay you back. Here's a check that you can have. If you just cash it in 2 months, it'll have everything plus interest. So it's very typical of the scams that we see. I like to throw this one up there. It's a little bit funny. This one is almost 10 years old, so the grammar is really bad. But it's a older doctor in his scrubs holding a puppy, talking about in his profile the need for trust and honesty, which I always found quite ironic. And again, this one is really kind of rife with typos. We're not seeing stuff quite that bad these days. I think a lot of people have probably been hearing a lot about artificial intelligence and things like ChatGPT, where you can very easily have a computer generate a romance profile or a dating website profile. So that's going to be something that's going to make our jobs even harder going forward. And again, these scammers are going to mimic kind of whatever they think they need to in order to form that relationship. So in this particular instance, the man purported, or the scammer purported to be a man who'd lost his wife to cancer. She was pregnant at the time, and which was what had happened to his victim as well. So again, there's nothing, there's no depth that these folks won't go to build that level of trust and ultimately secure funds. So frequently we see romance scams coming out of West Africa. So Nigeria and Ghana seem to be places where the scammers have kind of concentrated and kind of perfected this. And they'll have all sorts of different reasons why they're from your hometown, but they just happen to be working out of the country for an extended period of time. Frequently, victims will be told, "I'm flying to the airport tomorrow night," and they'll be asked to purchase, a plane ticket home, and they'll show up at the airport, and of course, no one ever shows up. And then the last thing I want to hit on that isn't a particular type of scam itself is just cryptocurrency. So again, we had about $10 billion in total losses reported to the Internet Crime Complaint Center in 2022. Of that 10 billion, about a quarter of it, or 2.5 billion, involved cryptocurrency or Bitcoin in one way or another. And that was a 56% increase from 2021. And frequently what we see is victims being directed to withdraw large amounts of cash from their bank account. And again, the scammer is going to give the victim an excuse, telling them to tell the teller that, oh, this is for a home renovation that I'm doing, and the contractor wants to be paid in cash or something along those lines. And then they'll be told to go to the closest Bitcoin ATM. And if you haven't seen them, they're becoming more and more popular. So I think Royal Farms has plenty of locations with Bitcoin ATMs, gas stations, other types of convenience stores. And the scammer will already have Googled where the closest one is and give you step-by-step directions on how to get there. Frequently, scammers are on the phone with victims for hours at a time, maintaining that connection. Even as you're in the car driving, they'll be giving you literally turn-by-turn directions on how to get to the closest Bitcoin ATM. And then they'll give you step-by-step instructions on how to set up a Bitcoin wallet and send it directly to the bad guy on the other side of the world. So you'll see a victim walking into Royal Farms with $10,000 in cash, and then just shoving $100 bills into the Bitcoin ATM until the transaction's complete. So a lot of this is done through the use of QR codes, which are those the squares that you see down in the bottom picture there, which are just kind of like a shortcut or a link to a scammer crypto wallet. So again, the increase that we've seen over the last 2 to 3 years has just been astronomical. So in 2020, we only had $55 million worth of fraud reported that involved cryptocurrency. And that went to 250 million, so it increased fivefold in 21. And then it went from 241 million to over $1 billion. So I mean, the losses are going through the roof. All right, so that's been a lot about cryptocurrency and the different types of scams out there. Now I want to spend some time talking about what we can do to protect ourselves. So the first thing and kind of most obvious is change your passwords regularly and have unique passwords for your sensitive financial accounts. So it's one thing if you want to use the same username and password for your fantasy football team or your subscription to the Washington Post, but when it comes to your Charles Schwab account or your Bank of America account, have a different password. And the reason for that is every time a major website gets hacked out there, and there's a list of them on the right there, Yahoo, Facebook, LinkedIn, Marriott. Frequently, those hacks include usernames and passwords, and those usernames and passwords are dumped to what we call the dark web, which is kind of where all the hackers and scammers congregate to share everybody's personal information. So if we look at the number of accounts that have been compromised on the right there, I'm here to tell you that everybody's username and password has been compromised at some point. So if we're not changing those, the scammer can go on there and for a small amount of money buy a number of different usernames and passwords, and then he's going to take those usernames and passwords and go to every bank that has any kind of online presence and see if any of them work. And if he gets lucky, he'll get online access and he'll start making transfers out of that account. So what's something that you can do to protect yourself? Something called multi-factor authentication or two-factor authentication. So this is basically when you log into your bank with the username and password, that's one factor, but then there's a second factor that the bank uses to authenticate you. Usually that's going to be a text message to your phone with a code. And that code is going to provide the second factor that allows you to get online access to your bank account. So for that reason, we've seen bad guys trying to port or move somebody's cell phone number to a different device so they can intercept that code, or they'll call the victim and ask them for that code, pretending to be Bank of America. That's why when the text comes through, the first part of it, if you look at it, it says, "We will never ask you for this code." So unless you initiated this request, don't talk to anybody about this code. So it's a very handy way to secure that those financial accounts. At the bottom right there, we see something called an RSA token. So that's a physical device. It can be used, and that number at the bottom on that device changes over time. And you actually have to have that physical RSA token on your person in order to put that code in. So it's even more secure than a phone, which can be manipulated. We see a QR code at the top right, and then this is another kind of tech support pop-up that you might see. So again, just be very careful about clicking on links or going to websites through unknown QR codes or QR codes from unknown sources. This is something that I took from my spam folder a while ago. So the bad guys are sending emails nonstop. Gmail and Yahoo and the email service providers are pretty good about filtering most of this stuff, but again, the scammers keep finding ways to get around these roadblocks and filters. And about a couple times a week, I'll find probably more than that. I'll find a couple that make it through into my main email box. What do you need to do, or what can a bad guy do with your personally identifiable information? Pretty much, anything that they want. They can use that to take over your financial accounts. They can open new lines of credit in your name. They can open new bank accounts in your name, and then use those to launder fraud proceeds from other schemes. They can use your information to file bogus insurance claims. So it can really cost you a lot. We're starting to run a little bit low on time here. There's a real life case study here of someone who's actually a retired FBI employee whose information was compromised, and the bad guys created a fake driver's license, walked somebody into a bank, had them withdraw $9,000 and then get two ATM cards made, and then before they knew it, the bad guys had taken it was probably about $15,000 to $20,000 out of their business bank account, and the bank finally got wise when they attempted a $50,000 withdrawal. Ultimately, the bank found out there was somebody on the inside that was working with the scammers to identify how much money was in these different accounts. in order to perform withdrawals. They did a little research into the teller, and the teller had done this with 26 additional victims, just 3 to 4 month period. So it's something that's a big problem out there for banks and what we call an insider threat. How else can you protect yourself? Always use a credit card instead of a debit card. Especially when you're shopping at a website, maybe for the first time. The item never appears or it's not as advertised. You can contest that charge, and the credit card company will refund that charge. Whereas if you try that with a debit card, it's usually not going to work, and those funds may be gone. Common sense, never send or invest money with people that you've not met in real life, and just be skeptical out there. If it seems too good to be true, it probably is. And this real quickly here, we'll talk about what to do if you get victimized. So the first thing is to contact your bank or financial institution and try to get that transaction reversed. So every bank out there is going to have a fraud department that's well versed in these types of scams, and they're the first line of defense in order to try and get that transaction reversed. Then I want you to go to a website that we've talked about a lot, www.ic3.gov. That's the Internet Crime Complaint Center. There is a special team that does nothing but work with banks and financial institutions to freeze money and then get money reversed and sent back ultimately to victims. So we have a really good track record if reports are made within the first 72 hours. As I said before, the criminals are always trying to move quickly because it's a race for them to get the funds in their hands, control, before banks or law enforcement find out. Frequently, they'll move the funds 2 or 3 times, which makes it difficult for your bank to get the funds reversed because the funds may be 2 or 3 hops down the stream. But if we get a report to IC3, we can reach out to each of these financial institutions and inform them that there's a fraud in progress. If you think your information has been compromised or that you're the victim of an identity theft, the Federal Trade Commission has got a great website that they run called www.identitytheft.gov. It'll give you a step-by-step playbook. 1, kind of asking you what happened, and then 2, letting you know steps that you need to take in order to secure your credit. Lastly, you'll probably want to consider filing a police report that can be used as kind of official documentation of your victimization. If you ever need that for tax purposes or insurance or anything like that, it's the best source of documentation that you can provide. And then just wrapping up here, again, I just want to plug the Federal Trade Commission, ftc.gov. They have a lot of great resources on their website regarding scams, and a lot of materials that I have in my presentation. I kind of lifted it and stole from them. So it's a great resource if you want to read more. And again, www.ic3.gov. You can go out there, read the most recent public service announcements, and then they have copies of every annual report that we've done for the last 15 or 20 plus years. So that is it. So I've got about 5 or 10 minutes for questions here if anybody wants to hit me up. All right. If no one has any questions, I've got a couple folks with their hands raised. I see Evelyn. Do I need to?
Needs to unmute.
Evelyn, I can't hear you. Can you unmute, please?
We can't unmute them.
There you go.
So you guys
Okay, there you go.
Oh.
Am I on now with you? Can you hear me
Yep.
now?
I can
Okay.
hear you.
When you say to contact you at the website, but if you have been hacked, are they seeing that we're trying to contact you on our computer? So is there a phone number?
Sure. So I'll give you, there's a couple phone numbers. First of all, it's 1-800 call FBI. So CALL FBI. And that will take you to our National Threat Operations Center. And we have a whole call center down there that can take your report. And then you can also try the FBI local field office in Baltimore, and that's 410 265 8080.
8080. So am I correct that they can check that we're trying to report them? Since
So
they're in our computers?
yes, if you've kind of taken that step of, giving them remote access to your computer, then absolutely they would be able to see everything that you did on that computer.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, Mary,
Good morning. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Go ahead, Mary.
Thank you for your presentation. I wanted to know, where does Maryland rank in elder fraud?
I would have to look that up off the top of my head. It's fairly proportionate, as far as the population goes. So I want to say we're somewhere in kind of the 14 to 18 range. So it's definitely a sizable part of the population. But if you wanted to go to ic3.gov, you could certainly download the most recent elder fraud report, and it does break down each state, and it'll tell you by the number of complaints and then by the amount of fraud that's lost. So I just don't have that committed to memory, unfortunately.
Thank you for the answer.
Yes, ma'am. How about Norma Scott?
No, hi, thank you for your presentation. I have a question about two questions actually. One concerns if that Microsoft screen pops up, it's obviously a fraud. Where do we go first? And B, I'm not quite sure how to get one of those little things that you have to have hold of. I don't know what you call them,
RSA.
an RSA.
So the RSA tokens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where do you get them?
So it depends on your bank, whether or not every bank will have or offer an RSA token. A lot of times they're used just for businesses that wire large sums of money on a daily basis. However, I know there are banks out there that do offer those, so you can talk to someone at your bank branch. For now, as long as you're using that code that's getting sent to your phone, that is more than adequate. But the RSA token is kind of just another level up from that.
Okay,
And then,
what about the Microsoft?
Yeah, so if you see a pop-up like that, if there's someone in your family, or you have friends who are kind of more technically savvy, they may be able to help you with that, and downloading some reputable antivirus software. You could take it to a computer repair shop, or the Geek Squad at Best Buy, and have them kind of remove that malware from your computer.
Thank you. And sorry, Norma Scott, I didn't realize there were two of us.
It's okay. We don't meet too many Normas.
Yeah, true.
When you said that if you're PII or P11, is it PII?
Yeah, your personally identifiable information. So your name, social security number, date of birth.
You should go to a website, and I didn't get that. You said the second thing was to report to police, but the first thing was to go to a website. What was that?
It was a www.identitytheft.gov.
Thank you.
Sure. All right. How about Carol Rinker?
Yeah, I'm going to ask the question. What is the Bureau doing to basically interdict or to identify and take some of these scammers down? And how successful has it been in doing that?
Sure. So we are definitely heavily invested in conducting a number of investigations. So we have success with the investigations that we open. We've, in addition to kind of working here locally, so as I said kind of at the outset there, I've got a team of 10 right now. We're expanding to 12 agents. Each one of those agents is carrying 10 to 20 cases. So we're working with the U.S. Attorney's Office here in the District of Maryland to bring federal prosecutions. And in addition to that, we've been placing people overseas in West Africa, in India, in Southeast Asia that can help us work with the local law enforcement there. We've had a recent success on my team in getting people arrested in India, which is a source of these tech support call center frauds. So we've just within the last 2 months gotten two individuals charged and arrested in India based on investigations that we opened here in Baltimore.
Thank you.
Sure. Sandra, I think you're the last one.
Keith, this is great. Thank you so much. There's been a lot of advertising about deeds being, I don't know, stolen somehow and new deeds filed on a person's property. How can I protect myself from that type of fraud?
Sure. I got this question the last time I did. I think there's one or more companies out there advertising kind of a protection service to prevent your home being sold from out from under you. And let me say that I think it's more of an issue for the purchaser of a home, and it really becomes an issue for a title insurance company. So if the title insurance company is not doing their due diligence and someone is basically falsely representing that they own a piece of property when in fact they don't, that becomes an issue for the purchaser who's going to put the funds down and then ultimately send them to a person who doesn't own the home. And then it becomes a title insurance issue. And if you're a purchaser who hopefully use title insurance, then you'll eventually get reimbursed. So it's something that we've seen a couple companies start to advertise this, and it does happen. But in my personal opinion, the Bureau, we're not going to endorse any kind of commercial venture or anything like that. But in my personal opinion, it's not something that is a threat or an issue for a legitimate homeowner themselves. And if you just Google a little bit on that, you can kind of find some supporting information for that.
Thank you.
Sure. All right. Well, I apologize. I do have kind of a hard stop here. I've got another meeting to get off to. So it was fantastic to speak to everybody today, and I really appreciate the opportunity. And if you grab my name or email and you had any additional questions or issues, feel free to reach out.